Our guest today is Cara Achterberg, a writer, advocate, and the leading storyteller of the fostering movement. Through her books, Another Good Dog and 100 Dogs and Counting, and her work with Who Will Let the Dogs Out, she's documented what fostering reveals about dogs, people, and communities across America. Hi, and welcome to Dog Fostering 101. I'm Jackie Adams, foster mom and learning and development professional. This podcast is for anyone who's new to fostering, thinking about saying yes for the first time, or navigating those early days and looking for practical tips, because fostering changes lives at both ends of the leash. So, Cara, I wanted to tell you, I actually, on my last trip to visit family in Ohio, ended up driving up north listening to one of your books. And
Yeah.
then on the way back, I listened to when you had gotten to approximately 100 foster dogs. And so it was so cool for me to get that experience of going home to see family and hearing about your adventures in fostering as you're more starting out. And then
Yeah.
as I'm coming back on my way to pick up my next foster dog, hearing about, the next phase, the next stage for you. So that was kind of my introduction to your efforts, to your work. And I'm really excited to now get a chance to talk to you in person and hear what it's like from you. So I'd like to start off by just hearing your personal why. Obviously, this is something that you're incredibly passionate about. But what is your why behind fostering? When was the moment that you realized this wasn't just something that you did, but something that was what you were going to throw yourself into?
I started fostering for very selfish reasons. I was just looking for a dog for our family and thought trying them out would be the best way to do that. But the real turning point for me, the time when, my why as to when I just went all out and was the first time I went to a Southern shelter. And I had fostered at that time. I had already fostered over 100 dogs, and when I walked in there and I saw the situation and I listened to this director tell me that 100 dogs had come in that month and they had adopted out three, and that reality and her tears at the time were just, for me, that was a turning point. That was when I couldn't look away. And I say to people, I really want to save dogs, but I actually really want to help people. And seeing her and all that she's given up. And I've seen it again and again in all the shelters I've been to. They work so hard and they're sacrificing so much to save these dogs. And so they're the people that I feel like I'm working for, but I also love dogs and I do love having the time with the dogs. But my why is really to fix this situation and to help the people that are on the front lines working so hard.
So you've visited so many shelters through your work. What trends, what patterns are you seeing around the company when you go to them?
Right now it's just really hard. The first time I went to a shelter, it was 2018, I think. And I felt like we were making progress. Things were getting better. And fostering was really huge then too. I mean, but it's gotten bigger. The pandemic kind of really made it get even bigger. But now, since the pandemic, the numbers have gotten so huge, and shelters are struggling and they're overwhelmed. And fostering is the one thing I keep saying to people, the one way you can help. Right now, the numbers are just out of control. We have too many animals coming in, not enough adopters. And money is great, but money's not going to fix it. And there's a struggle to find veterinary access and all of that. But fostering is the one thing that anybody can do to help right now. So fostering is really, man, it's having such an impact everywhere. And the hard part is, rescues are slowing down, and so that's the struggle too. All of it is just making the problems getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And fostering is like this one little thing that we can all keep doing. I had a shelter director tell me in Atlanta. It was Atlanta? Oh, somewhere in Georgia. Anyway, she said to me, if everybody just had a bathroom cat. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she was just saying, anybody can foster a cat in their bathroom. And it was so funny that I actually did come home and foster a cat in my bathroom. It didn't really work out. We ended up moving her to the porch, but it was just such a turning point for me. Like, yeah, everybody could foster a cat in their bathroom, but yeah.
So that's What you're talking about, the systematic problem, and especially where we're at right now with, if the research I've been looking at is correct, that a lot of shelters across the nation are typically at 90% plus capacity. When I started to dig in and hear that, I kind of felt overwhelmed. You kind of feel it start. You can tend to be apathetic, or I was tempted to be like, this is just too big. This is too much. Um, and so I got overwhelmed by that data, but then I took a step back and I'm like, no, I've been fostering at that point. I've been fostering for several months. And I'm like, okay, I can be aware of that trend. I can be aware that that is going on. And I can also know that for now, I just need to help that next pup in front of me. I just need to help this one um, get into my foster home. I just need to help them decompress. I just need to write up those behavior notes, take some good pictures, get them exposed to different groups. So, can you talk to me about, you've met hundreds of these dogs? Is there one transformation in that foster care system that you can tell me about, that you can share with us?
Oh my gosh. There's a transformation in every dog that comes through the door, and now we're probably over 300. I have no idea. I've lost track of the numbers, but they happen so often. I go back to the very first time I ever brought in a shut down, terrified dog, Hadley, who came in and was terrified. She wouldn't leave her crate. In fact, she stayed in the crate with the door open in this room for, I don't remember now, but days. She was just so terrified, and she was like curled up in the back of of the crate the whole time. It took so long, that one, to me. Now I look back now and I'm like, wow, she actually came around fast. But to me, it took 3 weeks, I think, before we could like pet her and she would get on the couch with us. But um, they transformed. So there's just so many the stories about it. I was trying to think about that question of just one. I could tell you 100. I feel like they all transform because for the very first time, for many of them, for the very first time, they are experiencing safety and love. And, we take those things for granted, but for a dog in a shelter, especially, that's rare. And, it's really cool when they see that. Like when they first suddenly misbehave, that's usually a time that, like, oh wow, they're finally comfortable enough here to, they're usually great for the first few days, and then they relax. They suddenly go, oh wait, they're not going to toss me out, and they reveal their real selves.
And one thing I've been, because I bring home these foster dogs, and now I've got tons of nieces and nephews. I've got 25 nieces and nephews, and I'd like to talk to them about through the fostering, the different phases with it. And it's interesting seeing their observations of it, because they're like, oh my goodness, you know, Hercules is really coming out of, he likes me now. He sniffs me now. And I talk to them, some of the older ones, about how, we as people might go through hurt, but we have our mask, we have our filters, we know how to hide it, versus dogs, you have this very raw emotion. You are getting to see that past trauma in a way some of us have maybe not personally experienced this before. And so, them going from being timid and with it being unmasked like that, and then having them begin to learn to trust, it's been something that I love sharing with, when I'm talking with students in classes, or even just, sharing those experiences with my nieces and nephews, relating it to how we process emotions as people, and talking about those vulnerabilities and talking about those transformations and talking about learning to trust and love again. Have you experienced the same?
Oh yeah, I mean, when they suddenly trust you, it's such a cool high. It's just a weird thing to say, but when they're so scared, and I've had ones that I've picked up that are like snapping at you, which is like,
Yeah.
oh, what have I gotten into? And then within days, they're like curled up at your side, and you can't imagine they would ever harm a flea. They're just it's just incredible to see what love and safety can do, and routine and food can do for an animal. Just it's simple stuff, but they haven't had it.
Basic stability, yeah, in a safe environment. So, what have you seen that people think fostering is? Because if other people are like me, I came into fostering really uninformed about what it would be, what it would involve, how I needed to show up, versus what it actually involves.
You know, there's People think a lot about fostering. Some people think I'm going to be sad. It's going to be too hard. I won't be able to say goodbye. And some people think there's something wrong with these dogs. So they're a little fearful about, why was this dog basically thrown away by our society? Maybe there's something wrong. So it's kind of a complicated question, but um, the not being able to say goodbye part, that's never been an issue for me, and that's always what everybody asks. But I think it's coming into it with this attitude of I'm just helping this dog. I'm helping this dog find his home. I'm helping him get healthy. I'm helping him feel better. I'm helping him get comfortable with people. I'm teaching him a few little skills, and then I'm going to help him get home. And it's different. It's a job. It's not just a like I'm going to sit and cuddle this dog. There's some of that, but there's also a responsibility because you're now trying to help this dog. And when you look at it that way, then it's not so heartbreaking. I mean, yeah, sure, it can be sad, but I've never thought of it as a sad thing. It's a really inspiring thing. There was so much about fostering that I didn't expect because I, like you, came into it. I was just gonna have this other dog, and I learned the hard way that you can't just let this other dog run around loose in your house. You have to put a little bit of boundaries on the situation, and but I didn't expect a lot of things. Like I didn't expect to find so many friends, and I didn't expect it to suddenly become part of a whole community, which of all these people who may not have anything in common with me except we all care about these animals. My husband said that to me one time too when somebody came to adopt, and he's like, the people that come up our driveway are people we would never likely encounter in our regular lives, but they show up in my driveway, and now we have a connection because of this animal we both care about, and some of these adopters have become friends. There's just been weird things that I never expected that part of it. I was always thinking it was going to be the dog part, and then the whole idea that there's something wrong with these dogs, that they're going to be, I don't know, some of them come in and they're just phenomenal. They're just they're so much better behaved than my dogs a lot of the time. That, and they're so, gosh, they teach us so much about resiliency and forgiveness. I mean, I feel like I get so much out of fostering, so much more than I'm giving. And dogs are amazing teachers, way better than people. And watching what they go through and watching them transform and all of that, it's incredibly inspiring.
I was recently, I had a foster puppy. Her name was Peach, but I started calling her Sweet Peach. And I think I maybe only got a couple of weeks with her, but she was an owner surrender. Her owner had passed away, and the family did not feel comfortable taking her on. And it was so intriguing that every day she was teaching me two or three tricks that she already knew. And just because we didn't have that history, we didn't have that background. But I'm like, oh, Peach can sit, she can stay. I can drop treats around her and she won't. And then it was like really advanced stuff too. Like, oh, if I go like this, then she'll twirl around in the air. And if I go like this, she'll roll over. And I'm like, what is this amazing dog? So I completely agree with you when I try to make sure I never, when I talk about this, write about this, etc., that I don't talk about second chances when it comes to shelter dogs, because I really don't like the phrase. And I get why maybe people say it, but I'm like, it makes it sound like the dog might have done something wrong to get them where they end up at the shelter. And there, especially with the economic times right now, there's so many dogs that because of somebody getting laid off in the family, or them having to make hard housing decisions or the budget decisions, that these dogs end up in the shelter. So I completely agree with what you're saying. I've definitely had so many dogs that are such a delight, a surprising, wonderful delight to have in the household. And I celebrate when they get matched up with those families. And then often I stay connected with those families and get those beautiful, amazing updates from them about how they're continuing to thrive in their new lives.
Yeah. It is cool to get the updates. I love that. I have a Facebook group, and so every when people just suddenly post a picture, it's amazing me. And now I've been doing it long enough too that like some of them have passed on, and that's just I grieve with them, and I've had people become repeat adopters. It just becomes this whole connection and community, and it's all of that was unexpected in terms of fostering, and I think people go into it worried about how it's going to affect them negatively, but actually it's really going to affect you positively. In fact, if you like move to a new area and you want to make friends fast, foster a dog, man, you'll have a community instantly. It's a brilliant idea.
That was my moving hack. That was 100% what I did. I moved into a community, back home. My family's lived there for generations, and so I know everybody. Everybody knows me. All of that great stuff. I moved to a new community, about a home where I don't know anybody, and I had the chance to foster one dog. And all of a sudden, complete strangers were coming at to me asking me to pet my dog. And then as I foster more dogs, people are continuing to come up to me and say, where aren't you the girl? Aren't you the lady that fostered? Where's your foster dog?" And
Yeah.
it's such a beautiful connector. I will say though, I do get sad when my dogs get adopted. I do feel that because I have bonded with them. I would never give up that high, that insight of getting to see a dog transform, because that is something so beautiful and so magical. But I have figured out that when my dog gets adopted, and I've read and researched about people having like ceremony they do, or like making sure that there's photos of that dog. I personally love to have something that I'm looking forward to, whether it's my puppy Cosmo got adopted on Monday, and I knew when these people met him that they were going to take them, and so I planned a coffee shop meetup with a new girlfriend for immediately afterwards, just because I'm like, I have to recognize that was a real experience that I had. And I need to continue to move forward with my life because I can't stay in that place. But I want to celebrate what I just did, what we just accomplished together.
Yeah. Well, fostering another dog is the best thing to do, isn't it? Let's just get
Oh,
another one. I always have one
I,
with wings.
I typically do. The best way to like celebrate the fostering is moving on to the next one. Since I am going home for the holidays this season, I've already got the next one lined up for when I come back. I'm excited. It's going to be the first time I'm doing a whelping foster. So it's a mother, Callie, and her 7 puppies. So that'll be a brand new adventure for me on my side.
Oh yeah, that will totally change it. And you just mentioned something too that's super cool about fostering is that if you're traveling and you foster, if you're with a good rescue, they will usually have somebody who can babysit for you, or you can just time it so you don't have a foster. My husband and I say all the time when our two are gone that we might just foster because it just makes it easy to travel and do stuff because you can have a dog when you want and then you don't have a dog when you can't have a dog. It's kind of a brilliant win-win.
Yeah, and I've done respite fostering for other fosters in the community, and I've had other ones come alongside me because, yeah, you prefer, if possible, for that dog that you've worked with not to have to go back into the shelter, though it's always nice to have that as a backup or go back to the rescue. But I love the option of respite fostering so that if you have a busy travel schedule, if you like to be out and about, then you can have that joy of dog companionship. Um, and also live your fulfilling life in the way that you choose.
Yeah, there's a lot.
So,
Mhm.
I am curious to hear. We've already talked a little bit about how having fostering in your life can make that change for humans just as much as it does for dogs. What shifts have you noticed since you've gotten to meet so many fosters? What shifts have you seen in those fosters from these experiences?
Um, they learn so much about like their own dogs when they're fostering other dogs, and I see this, maybe for me too. I started getting more into the training pieces of it just because I was learning because I had to how to house train a dog, how to teach a dog to walk nicely on a leash, how to teach a dog not to jump up, a lot of that stuff. So I've definitely seen that, and I think a lot of other fosters too. It changes your own the way you look at your own dogs and what you're going to do. And it's also the more they foster, the more they learn, the more they get involved. Like they'll suddenly be doing more at the rescue. They'll suddenly be driving a transport or, being the medical coordinator or whatever. They start doing more and more because it's addictive almost. Like once once you start doing it, you just want to help as many as you can, and like you saying you're getting whelping puppies now. Well, It all starts that way. It starts with one dog, and then it gets more and more. Now I always have puppies and a dog, and usually I'm foster babysitting for somebody else, and it just they you end up doing more and more. It's that rewarding. There's definitely people who have a negative experience here and there, like something goes badly. But if you're fostering for a good rescue or a good shelter, they should have protocols in place to support you and help you, and so that you're never alone going through some awful thing. I mean, there's gonna it's life, they're dogs, things are gonna go wrong, and you can't predict everybody's behavior, but if you have this good support system around you, you can handle it.
And I definitely think that's one of the added bonuses of recognizing that there is a community of support, whether that's the staff at the shelters or the rescue or some of the fostering volunteer groups that I have, knowing that one of the things that I really like is I hadn't realized beforehand that it's almost like that stone soup story where, oh, I can't foster right now, but I can transport the dog to you. Or, oh, I can, like you said, do respite fostering because I can't do the long term. And at first, to me, it seemed really confusing coming in. Like I thought, like, oh, we're making this much more complicated than it needs to be by getting this piece here. This person can go pick up the food or different things like that. But I'm like, it's complicated, but it actually works. And then what I noticed for me is it created these bonded experiences because then I'm updating the person who brought me that foster dog of, oh, here's Boba 3 days later, and here's how she's thriving. And you're talking to the volunteers and you're talking to the transporter. And I love that added bonus of this bonded community of people who are all rooting for this dog who's going on this transformative journey to try to find their forever home.
Yeah, the more people you get involved, the better, I think. And I say that to shelters and to rescues because the people who are fostering and the people who are volunteering, they're your best advocates. They're the best advocates, not just for the rescue, but for that dog. So if that dog goes in respite foster with somebody for a weekend or whatever, they might have a neighbor who falls in love with that dog. And now that dog has a home. Like the more people that you get involved in any capacity, even if it's just like picking up dog food and delivering it, they're now invested in that rescue. They're now invested in that dog getting a home. It's important to build that big community of people.
So you touched on this before. I just want to circle back to this. For people who are afraid to foster, whether it's because of the fear of getting attached or if I fostered, it's one of the most common things I hear when I'm talking to people, classes, adults, about fostering. I can't foster. I can't do what you do because I would get attached. I would adopt every single one, and then I'd have a house full of dogs, which doesn't sound completely awful to me. But what would you say from what you've seen firsthand that might help them out with the fear?
Of getting attached and keeping them all.
Or the uncertainty of I don't know what fostering is, and I have this dog that there's a lot of unknowns that I'm bringing into my household. Maybe from some people I've heard, I've had my own dogs, but I don't know what I'm getting into with fostering, and it seems a little bit overwhelming. I'm concerned about my house, my family. I don't know what this would look like, and so I just haven't.
Well, the biggest thing is you're not alone. I mean, there's always going to be somebody you can call. If my dog has something goes wrong with him, I guess I can talk to my husband about it or my vet, but I don't have an entire community of experts and trainers and people who can help me. I mean, I do now because I have my foster community, but when you start fostering, you suddenly have this whole network of support of experts. You have access to, potentially a veterinarian if there's one affiliated with your shelter or your rescue, with people who have years and years and years of experience with all different kinds of dogs. So, like, if you're fearful that I'm not going to be able to handle this dog, I say it's a really big dog or a really excitable dog, those you have people to reach out to, and you always have, somebody can step in and take that animal if they had to do that, but people are surprising how much you can handle, and you don't realize you can until you have to. And I don't know, all these hundreds of dogs we've had, there's been I can't even think of a single one that I ever felt like I'm afraid of this dog or this is going to be a bad situation. In terms of letting them go, when I first started fostering, I had 3 kids at home, and that was the fear was like, oh, and they did ask in the beginning, can we keep this one? Can we keep that one? and and I would just tell them, like, if we keep this one, we won't be able to help another one, and there's so many that need help. And that was really driven home once I started visiting the shelters. Now it's super easy when people are like, won't it be hard for you to let this one go? Like one, like right now, I have this really cool dog, Nemo. He's tripod, and such a super cool dog, and everyone thinks, oh, don't you want to keep him? Won't you miss him? And I'm like, no, let's get him out the door. As soon as he's out the door, I can bring somebody. I can get another dog. I can save another dog. So for me, it's almost an urgency. Like I don't want them to linger. I want to get them out the door. Not that I would just give them to anyone. I would trust my rescues to do their due diligence and make sure they're matching them well. But the faster they're out the door, the more lives I can save. So to me, saying goodbye is not hard. And my kids understood that too. They totally got it when I said, if we keep this one, we can't save another one. And there was no question. And after a while, they started to really enjoy it. Like I recommend this actually to parents who have teenagers who don't want to hang out with you. Foster, foster, and let them choose. My daughter wanted to foster a purse dog. She kept calling it a purse dog, one that'll fit in your purse. And we mostly did large dogs. We lived on a farm when we first started, and so we did a purse dog. We did this little Chiweenie. He weighed like 3 pounds, and it was such a spaz. A great dog, but such a spaz. And like it cured her. She no longer wants a purse dog, but she got to have one. So they were like, it's like we get a new dog every couple of weeks. We get another dog, a new dog, and so it became a fun thing, And we still to this day, like I will see them at Christmas. We will joke. I'm sure Flannery will come up. She was one of our most memorable fosters. Like we'll talk about it. It's like something we have in common. So like when your teenagers don't want to be home and don't want to spend time with you, start fostering, especially puppies. They'll stick around, and all their friends will come and want to be at your house too.
I think fostering, I that's part of the reason why I'm speaking at schools and with civic groups like Rotary clubs about fostering is I'm like, I put it together that fostering is so good for families and such a real life way of reinforcing values like resilience and trust and vulnerability and compassion and meeting others where they're at. And to what you're saying, I loved that my nephews, I've got three young nephews that live close by me, and they kept telling me, "Oh, you're going to keep this one. You're going to keep this one." And they finally got to be here. One of my recent fosters are like, "Aunt Jax, you really need to keep this one. She just follows you around. She loves you so much. You can't adopt out this one." But it was beautiful because this was the first time that they got to go with me. It happened to line up with the schedules that the potential adopter who I had vetted, we were meeting up, and they got to meet the family that was taking on this dog. And you got to hear them go into this meeting very nervous about this, and then see that introduction, see that family just bring so much love into that interaction, and see my nephew start to like understand, see this from a completely different light. And now they get it,
Mm-hmm.
and they're supportive of, and now they want to know, like you're saying, what's the next one, what is this going to look like, we just want to hear the stories. And I love that brought something to fostering that I had no idea we would be getting from this. And now that you're saying all this too, I didn't even put this together, but I'm glad, since my background is corporate learning and development. For the past 15 years, I've been working with adults in professional development, always taking on new skills, always upskilling. I didn't even think about that was part of what I think has drawn me into fostering, is since I'm part of this community. So from the community and from the dogs themselves, I'm learning all the time. I'm learning about myself. I'm learning empathy. I'm learning patience. I'm learning different tricks. I'm being engaged. I didn't think about part of the reason why I went from just thinking I was going to do this one time with one dog to like having this passion, wanting to recruit others to this experience, because I feel like I am constantly learning through fostering. So I'm really glad you called that out.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm totally learning. And even all of those things, but also in caring for the dogs. I'm learning a lot about canine health. I people can call me and ask for advice, and they used to be like, "What? You're asking me for training advice?" Because I'm not a trainer, but I do know a lot because I've had to learn it, and it's amazing how all these skills start to pile up, and you don't even realize you have them until you need them, until you have a foster dog that is, for instance, like pulling really hard or has some kind of issue, and I can usually handle it. I've seen it before. That said,
Yes.
always something new. There is always something new that I haven't seen before. So it that keeps it interesting. It'd be boring if they were all the same.
Yeah, it definitely does keep you. You learn a lot, and it keeps you on your toes with every new foster. When I start to get a little bit too confident, I did have somebody in Lowe's walk up to me and say, "Hey, I noticed you were training that dog. Would you be available to help train mine?" And I'm like, "No, no, no. I'm a newer foster, but let's talk over some of what's going on with your puppy." And it was nice to be able to engage in that conversation of, "Hey, I've had a couple of fosters who have shown similar behavior. Here's what worked for them. Here's maybe a couple of things you can try and consider." But speaking of like that kind of growing into the over community aspect, when you've seen fostering like start to take off in some of these communities that you've gotten exposed to, what have you seen as the impact on those communities? What does that look like when we have fostering becoming more of the norm? I guess, have you seen that, and what does that look like?
The county right below us, there, Rockingham County, there's a shelter there that had until I want to say it was 2016, 18, just really dire numbers. Like they'd taken thousands of animals and they were euthanizing like 90% of them. And a director came in there and really, really pushed for fostering, and they developed their fostering. I have a puppy for them right now, actually. They really developed their fostering system to the point where they have like several hundred fosters and a full-time foster coordinator who has to manage all of that. And their numbers are phenomenal. They're saving everything because they have so many fosters. Now they use James Madison University is right there. They allow students to foster, which is brilliant, but they have to plan for it. Like right now, I keep seeing on the foster page, can you take in, all the school cats are coming back. The cats are being fostered at the schools because they're going home on break, and so they have to plan around that and working with that. But it's cool that whole community is so invested in that shelter. It's a resource for the whole community. Just like we were saying earlier, the more people that are fostering, the more people that are involved in any way, shape, or form, they're now invested in the success of that shelter. They're now invested in saving those lives. So the bigger foster system you can develop, the better your shelter is going to do. And I definitely saw that in Rockingham. There's another county just a little further south, same situation. Many of their dogs are in foster care. In Memphis right now, which is a really hard situation, just because their stray population's gotten so bad. They have probably as many dogs in foster care as they have in the building. So if they didn't have those fosters, there would be a lot more animals dying. So it's a powerful tool, and any shelter that's not using it is just missing out on an opportunity not just to save lives, but to build a community that cares.
So this is going to be extremely hypothetical, but if every household across the US took on just one foster dog once a year, how do you think that would transform the national landscape?
We would be euthanizing a lot less animals, that's for sure. But fostering has such an impact, not just on, like you said, just not just on saving a life. It has an impact on the family that's housing that dog. I mean, it changes you. So I think we would be a gentler place for one thing, because we'd all have a little bit more empathy for each other, and caring for an animal is very humbling, just like caring for children can be very humbling. And I can't say enough good. I think everybody should be fostering. I can't imagine the day when we would not be fostering. My kids all want to foster as soon as they have a place where they can. I just think it's really good. It would also, the other thing, if everybody fostered, everybody would be aware of the need, and maybe they would be less buying of purebred dogs and more adopting of rescue dogs.
So, if you could give the listeners one idea to hold on to of why fostering matters so much, what would it be?
It'll change your life. It's not even about the dog. It's going to help you and your family and your community and everybody you encounter. Um, it's it's good for you as much as it's good for the dog. It's good for you. You should foster. Everyone should foster.
I That resonates with me because ever since I've heard this, I think I've used this everywhere that I talk about fostering. As I say, fostering transforms lives at both ends of the leash. And I have found that personally to be true. Every single foster that I talk to talks about it being true. I love that you get to see that transformation and you get to feel that transformation yourself and the people surrounding you. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time with us here today, Cara. It's such a wonderful chance to get to read your amazing books, hear about, learn about your nonprofit, and then get a chance to talk about, why you are doing so much to help these dogs.
It's been fun. It's been fun to focus on fostering. I feel like I've been focused on so many other things, but just getting back to the, like, why do we do this, and appreciating it and being grateful that I can. So thanks.
Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of Dog Fostering 101, Everything I Wish I Knew When I Began Fostering. This episode was edited by Make Your Day Richer. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to follow us and check us out on Facebook and Instagram. Now go cuddle a pup and have a great day.